Member for Higgins.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Last week, October the 11th, marked the International Day of the Girl, a day to highlight and address the unique needs and challenges that girls face around the world. I take this opportunity to acknowledge all of the women sitting in this room who were once girls themselves, and for those girls of now and the future who may be watching this speech, including my own two daughters. We can rightly take pride in the milestones achieved for girls all around the world to date. We can celebrate the fact that in 25 years since the Beijing World Conference on Women, more girls today are attending and completing school, and fewer are getting married or becoming mothers while still children. We can celebrate the fact that girls are breaking boundaries and stereotypes across all walks of life, all around the world, by translating their dreams to reality. Most importantly, we can celebrate the fact that girls are creating a world that is relevant for them and for future generations. However, these milestones are hardly representative of the lived experiences of all girls in our world. In fact, the reality is every 10 minutes, an adolescent girl dies as a result of violence. In humanitarian emergencies, gender-based violence often increases. Such perpetration occurs when male caregivers subject girls to sexual and physical violence, child marriage, exploitation and trafficking. Mr Deputy Speaker, I visited our nearest neighbour, PNG, earlier this year. The visit reinforced to me the stark differences that remain across the experiences of girls and indeed boys in even our closest neighbouring countries, and that we cannot take for granted the enormous strides we've made here in Australia. In PNG, the prevalence of intergenerational abuse, and especially gender-based and sexual violence, completely shocked me. Over 2/3 of women had experienced forms of physical and sexual violence in their lifetime. That's 2/3. Over 50% of the sexual violence cases reported to clinics were against children. Shockingly, 41% of men had admitted to perpetrating rape. This form of inequality is simply unacceptable and cannot continue. This is a critical time for the girls of our world, a time for collective responsibility, especially so in the light of the warm winds of change occurring globally with respect to their rights and opportunities. Mr Deputy Speaker, the Morrison government is serious about ensuring an equitable future and providing opportunities for women and girls. Our priority in this area begins with our regional Indo-Pacific efforts directed at empowering girls and women. As former Minister for Women Kelly O'Dwyer emphasised, our ability to seriously tackle these issues depends on a shared commitment to gender equality and women's participation in this space. Currently, many of the disadvantages faced by women and girls in our neighbouring countries are entrenched by poverty and amplified by the effects of natural disaster and war. We can take the first step in minimising the resulting conflict and instability by involving women as negotiators, as first responders and as leaders in at the decision-making table. I'm proud of our government's investment in local programs in PNG aiming to reduce domestic violence and improving education for girls. Mr Deputy Speaker, a key priority of our government is to help women, both here and overseas, to improve their independent economic security. We know that when women do well, their families do well, and our economy and nation prospers. In November last year, the first ever Women's Economic Security Statement was delivered, with more than $100 million dedicated to practical measures to help give women greater life choices, build financial security and grow the Australian economy. Additionally, the Coalition Government has invested the single largest ever Commonwealth Fund of $328 million for prevention and frontline services to support the fourth action plan of the National Plan to Reduce Violence Against Women and Their Children. There is, of course, always more that can be and should be done. I want my daughters and the girls of both today and tomorrow to grow up in a world full of hope and opportunity. We must continue as a government and as a nation to provide pragmatic policies and solutions to ensure that every Australian girl has the opportunity to live their life free from discrimination and achieve their potential, and that is why I stand in support of this motion by the member for Jaga Jaga. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker.